Hi friends, it's Michelle from Quimby Cottage Knits in Michigan. How are you? It's March, the end of March, and it's a little bit cold. So even though I washed most of my warmest sweaters, I put on my Stash Dive Ragland today because I'm wearing leggings, to be frank, and I just felt like being cozy. You know, I'm going to take this to the cottage with me anyway, so it's not like I was going to pack it away and never wear it the rest of the season, but it's still mostly clean, right? And I wear things more than once. Do you? If you're new here, thanks so much for coming. And if you've been with me for a while, I'm glad you're back. I never say that stuff, but I mean it in my heart. So if I don't say it, I'm just going to say it to you now. I'm glad we're together today. I'm glad we're knitting together. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what I have finished, which is not that much actually. Do you remember last time I told you that I was knitting these shorty socks? This is my first pair of shorty socks that I ever knit. I used leftovers from Sabine, my daughter Sabine. I made her these socks, the trench coat from Turtle Pearl Yarns, kind of is reminiscent of Burberry. I made her these for Valentine's Day, and then I used the leftovers to make myself a pair of shorty socks. So they don't match exactly, and I remembered now why that was. This was the first one I made. And I decided when it was time to do the heel, I pulled from the inside of the ball and I did the heel flap from the inside of the ball. And that way it didn't interrupt the stripe pattern. See that? But I forgot that I did that. So they match perfectly to here, but then I did not do that on the back part. So they don't match perfectly, as you can see. But to be honest, when they're in shoes, they look the same. And they look the same enough that I don't think very many people would notice, to be honest. These are shorty socks. I decided to do, I have some store-bought socks that have arch support because I have old lady feet and they are flat. And so I'm prone to plantar fasciitis. I know, it's a middle-aged ailment. Anyway, I decided that I would make these with a 1x1 rib once I finished the heel. And I did, I think, I don't know, 6 rows maybe, and then I did a 1x1 rib for about 2 inches. I don't know if it makes a difference. So I'm making, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. I don't know if it makes a difference. These, when I wear them, they're fine. They stay on my feet fine, but my right one kind of slips off the second time I wear them. I know that probably never happens to you because you probably wash your socks every single time, but sometimes I wear them twice because I don't usually wear socks all day. So I noticed that the right one doesn't stay up as much as the left. I haven't noticed if it's the same sock that is slipping or if it's just the same foot. My right foot is slightly smaller than my left foot, so it rubs a little bit in the shoe differently, I think. Whatever. Anyway, they're fine. I'm going to make a couple more. Well, I'm going to make one more pair for sure, and then we'll see what happens with those. So shorty socks, first pair. They're okay. Like, I'm not ready to give them a 2 thumbs up, but they definitely have 1 full thumb. And then I decided to knit a Hitchhiker shawl. Have you guys seen this before? It's a Martina Bain pattern, and it's really super easy. You start at one end. You're always adding on the smooth end, and there's, I think, an 8-row repeat, and that's what creates these teeth, right? So it calls for 1 ball of one ball of fingering weight yarn. I did not do that. I have Dune, which is technically a DK weight yarn, but it's a pretty light DK. So I knit this on a size 5 needle. I think she calls for, I don't know, maybe a 3 on a fingering weight. So I just went up a little bit. And Dune is my favorite yarn. It has camel hair in it, which I love. But let me just tell you, there are a ton of ends in this because I think it's the way that the yarn is made. When they joined it, you know, from like every single ball had a join. Let me just say that. So there were no balls that I knit like from start to finish where I didn't have to cut and weave in ends. But, you know, I love the yarn, so I was happy to do that. But every so often you're knitting along and then you come to this little piece and it's about the length of like maybe a bead and it feels like it's glued and it's really like hard and crunchy. So you have to cut that out and then weave the ends in. So I ended up with a lot of ends. Anyway, then don't worry. the yarn is discontinued, of course, because right when I fell in love with it. But anyway, I made this because I have a friend and I wanted to make something special for my friend. And I figured, why not make it with a yarn that I love? So this, I wanted something that's sort of unisex because that family have men and women who both like shawls and scarves. And so look at how cute is that? The little teethy edge. And I felt like this was unisex, pretty unisex. And so I did this. It took 3 balls of Dune. Dune has 150-ish yards, I think, 160 yards in it or something like that. So it used up all of my yarn, but I was happy to do that. So I finished this Hitchhiker. It's supposed to have, I think, 42 teeth on it. Mine does not have that many. And I wanted to use up every inch, so my last tooth isn't full, the full tooth. It's maybe 1 row short or something, 2 rows short. But it doesn't matter. You wouldn't notice. I don't think most people would notice. So I think it's supposed to have 42 teeth. It's called the Hitchhiker because it has something to do with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is something I'm not familiar with at all, except to know that it exists. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. It's supposed to have 42 teeth. It has something to do, well, if you're a fan, you know, and mine only has 38, but that it's still, I think, big enough, and it's exactly right, and it's a gift, and so yay. I think I've told you before, sometimes I do projects for other people, and one thing that I recently did was I added a little bow onto a teddy bear stocking and some initials in duplicate stitch, so I'll share a picture of that. So I finished that as well. But that was super simple. I will say that was a store-bought stocking, and I feel like it was made, maybe the Sundance company, maybe the Sundance catalog. It's kind of, rustic in that way. Anyway, I decided to go ahead and do another project. So I don't know. I know it's been done probably by a lot of people, but the first time it came on my radar was the Knitting Pipeline. She made a shawl called the Magic Knot Shawl. I don't actually knit a lot of shawls, which I know seems weird because I've just finished one, and then I shared with you the Coro that I just finished, and that's a shawl, but I typically don't knit a lot of shawls. It just seems like I'm doing it right now. So I knew that I would not knit that. But the idea of a magic knot ball kind of appealed to me. So I also saw, I think the Autumn Acorn made a pair of socks out of a magic ball, and I thought, I wonder if that's something I would like to try. I sent her a message on Instagram and asked her if she's ever had them unknot, and also if you can feel the knot on the sock, because it's your foot, so you don't really want to be walking on a knot all day long. And she said she hasn't noticed at all. So I thought I would give it a try. So last weekend, the weekend before last, I decided to make my own magic ball. And I think she said, the Autumn Acorn said she wrapped it around her hand like 20 times. That was too tedious for me. So what I did was I just put a ball like in a bowl, and then I cranked my winder until it was a few cranks, some cranks, and then I did a knot, and then I, cranked the next one until I was tired of cranking that color, and then did a knot. So mine are totally random, but I did decide to knit them into a sock. So I did this one, and I decided I made 2 balls. So this is the remainder of one. You can see that I don't know if you can tell, but this is one orange, and then there's this hot pink, and then there's definitely like a hotter pink inside, and then there's whatever this is inside that. So there's several, and then in this side there's like a little light pink. So there's several colors in this. And then this is another ball that I made with the magic knot. So all just random sock weight yarns. So I knitted this. Each of these balls is around 50, 58, 52, 50 something grams. I weighed them, can't remember now. I worried though, even with the shorty sock, that I might run out. So I decided to knit a red heel and toe in each of these because they're not the same. I just made one ball, and then I separated. I didn't separate them. I just started knitting, so they're not going to be the same at all. So I also thought that the red heel and toe might make them look like a pair. So this is the first one. I've just started the second one, so it looks like so. So it will have the same red heel. I did not do on this one the 1x1 rib, mostly because I forgot, but it will be a good experiment also to have two different pair and see if it makes a difference. So yay for science, right? Or mistakes that end up being like science. So I will finish this pair and then try them and see what happens. And I plan to make this into a pair also. And that way I'll have 3 shorty pairs, and then I feel like 3 will give me a good feel for what I think about shorty socks. Don't you think that should be enough? And then I'll wear them a little bit and I'll give you a full review of what I think about shorty socks. I love the idea of shorty socks. I just hate, like I am like a child. When my heel slips into my shoe, I literally have to stop and take my shoe off and fix it. I cannot deal with it at all like a child. I mean, I have no maturity when it comes to that discomfort. So there you go. So anyway, this is actually the only thing on my needles right now. And then I made these things and I finished that and that's it. So I thought I would tell you a couple of other things. One, what I've just finished. I finished reading this book. Have you read this book, Passing? It was written, I think, in the 1930s. Really good. It's a book about really 2 women in particular who are racially black, but are light enough to pass in the white world. So one chooses to live in the white world and one occasionally lives in a white world. And it's a very fascinating book and brings up a lot of really good meaty issues. So it's not new, but it's excellent. I highly recommend it. And one of the things I think is really interesting is in the back, they have all these, whenever they mention something that is specific to that time, they tell you in the back what it really meant for that time, which I think is really great. I love to learn in that way. And because this was written in a time when those things would have been common knowledge, like, for example, the Drayton is a fictional hotel, but it's modeled after 2 fashionable Chicago hotels. One is the Drake and one was the Morrison. And they talk a little bit about that. And I think that that's super fascinating. And one of the things that I learned from this is that there was a black summer community in Michigan called Idlewild, and it's outside of Baldwin. So funny, when I was a kid, we used to go to Baldwin sometimes. I don't remember exactly why, but we did. And I never have heard of Idlewild. And now I'm super interested to go and see it for myself. And there's some kind of group that's trying to, definitely like a man who's spearheading the effort, but that are trying to rejuvenate that area. And I just think that that's super fascinating. So I love learning new things. And this was a great thing to learn new things about, also besides bringing up topical things for us to think about and ponder. So there's that. And then you probably didn't know this about me, or maybe you could have guessed. I'm a fan. I'm a fan, a fan, a fan, a fan. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. So this is all about their fashion. I am this far into it and I love it. It's actually more text than you would think. I at first thought it was just a picture book. Not just a picture book. There's actually quite a bit of text in here. And some of it is really fascinating. And they even talk about, here's a little knitter rabbit hole I went into. So they talk about the babies and how they're wrapped in a blanket that seems to be hand knit, but it's not. It's made by a company called G.H. Hurt and Son. But it immediately, okay, last night I got to this page. I looked that up. Then, yes, I did. I went on Ravelry and I looked at hap shawls because I feel like babies in my life need to have something like that. Let's be honest. Probably it was just a Ravelry wormhole that I just found myself in and just spiraled into that. No, you guys never do that, but I do. It's unlikely that I will ever actually make any, but you never know. You never know. It did inspire me because right now the only thing I have on the needles is that sock. I do need a bigger project. And I was trying to think of what I had enough yarn for to make a bigger project. And I told you, I don't have much of a stash and it's diminishing. Like I have quite a few partial balls and quite a few single balls, one single ball, but not a lot where there's more than one. But I bought yarn a while ago and it only supposed to take one skein, but I bought an extra one for insurance. The Yarn Harlot did a baby layette set, and I think I'm going to knit that next. Not because I know that there's a baby for it, because let's be honest, if I'm going to knit a layette set, it's going to be for like a baby that has a big percentage of my DNA, probably a grandchild. And since my children are still in college, well, one's out, but don't get any ideas. I'm not ready for that yet, but I could be getting ready, and it could go in the fair, and then it could be a blue ribbon little layette set. And then wouldn't it be something if my first grandchild, which is years away, was enrobed in a blue ribbon like little layette set? Yes, it's true. I sometimes go that way and get a little crazy. Anyway, I'm thinking about doing that next, just because it will give me something bigger to work on. It works through stash, and also it could be something for the fair. So might do that next. Speaking of Ravelry, did any of you read the New Yorker article about Ravelry? It was kind of fascinating. It was about Ravelry, but it also was about kind of the internet and how we have swung into this sort of different place in the internet where there's a lot of criticism and things like that. And it probably really always was there, but I wasn't aware of it. So it was interesting to read, mostly because there were a lot of things about Ravelry that I didn't realize. Like, for example, the way it's designed, everything that's in Ravelry, you have to do yourself. The user has to decide themselves if they're going to go down a rabbit hole. So if you waste 4 hours on Ravelry, I never do that, but like somebody might, right? Anyway, if you are on Ravelry for a long time, it's because you saw something and then it piqued another of your interests and you did a different search. And it's not because some algorithm artificially calculated what might interest you next and did all of these things to keep you there. Ravelry doesn't keep you there. It's your own interest that keeps you there. And I thought that that was really kind of fascinating. And I sort of wish that all of the internet was like that, right? I don't always want to be presented with things that might interest me, because I just don't. So anyway, I thought that that was kind of interesting. And I also I found myself being very grateful for Ravelry and being very grateful for the insistence of the developers to maintain it the way their original idea was. And I know some people might think that it's old fashioned, or perhaps it could make more money, but I really respect the fact that the people who developed it are wanting to stay true to their vision. And I think that that's kind of respectable. And I just found myself really admiring Ravelry even more than I might have before I read the article. So that was in the New Yorker, if you want to read it too. So that's all I have for you today. It's going to be super short. And I know that you're probably counting down. It's 35 days until we move into the cottage. I'm super excited about it. It's probably going to be cold. I hope that you guys have a great day and a good weekend ahead. I hope that spring is starting to spring where you are. We have one large forsythia shrub in our garden, and I went there today and I saw that the buds are not ready to open yet and they're not ready to cut yet, but the second they are, in the next couple days, I'm going to go out there and get a big bundle of those and bring them in the house, because it will make a huge difference in how cheerful the house seems when you can have real blooms from your garden. And then I did a little gardening, inside gardening. When the girls come home from school, from college, I like to put flowers in their bedrooms because I think it's nice. But last year in the spring, so when they come home at Christmas, I usually buy a poinsettia. But when they came home last spring, it was COVID and we knew that they weren't going back. So I bought them clovers, lucky clovers. What are those called? The clover plant, the lucky clover plant. Shamrocks. Oh. So I bought them shamrock plants, and Sabine took hers back to college and it's blooming and she's really tickled by it. And Sarita's is still here. So I split it. Look. And there's one in the downstairs kitchen window. So this is the split one. Now here's the sad story about this one. It looked better, but it was in the window. And Mr. Hansen shoved open the kitchen window and the pot fell over. And because I had just freshly potted, a bunch of that stuff just kind of came. So now it looks a little wah, wah, wah. you know, because it got disturbed again after it didn't have a chance to like really settle in when he knocked it over again. So I think it's going to be fine in the end, but it doesn't look great. I'm taking it north with me though, because I'm super excited. And then I also have one that's purple downstairs in the window and in the kitchen window. It looks pretty good. So this room is directly above the living room, but the kitchen, this is a north facing window. And so the kitchen also faces north. So I think that that's perfect for these shamrock plants. And if you know something that I don't, then tell me, because I'm really terrible at houseplants. And if you have shamrocks that are also blooming, yay for you. So thanks for stepping in. I'll see you later.